I'm Paul Bolton. I race in the World Enduro Super Series, and I'm here to tell you now a little bit about the new Mitas Terra range. So I'm going to take you through some of the different tyre options we've got in the Terra range. Starting with the yellow Super. This is in a 140 80/18. I'm going to grab one now. Can I do this? Yeah, let's go over. So, single yellow line, yeah, meaning it's a slightly stiffer tyre. We've got the new Terra pattern, which is actually a directional tyre, and you can see the direction here, also on the arrows on the side. And what I like about the Terra Force yellow stripe is that it's slightly stiffer carcass, good for faster terrain, very more dry conditions, a bit more of a cross-country tyre, traditional enduro, that kind of thing. So running this with a slightly stiffer mousse if it was dry, but then if it was a wetter day you could still have the stiffer knobble to hook up from all the dirt, and you could run it with a slightly smaller mousse as well. Not an extreme mousse, maybe just a 120 mousse inside there, so at least you'd get a little bit of press, and what that would make is a little bit bigger of a footprint to get going, and you'd still have a pretty good stability on the faster sections as well. So good for a fast setup, and good tyre all round. So that is the Terra Force EF tyre, yellow stripe, and that's actually an FIM approved tyre. So for this tyre, for me, if we're gonna compare it to some races in the West Championship, it could be the likes of Hawkstone Park, where it's quite rough in the trees, and it's quite a fast track, so, and not too many technical sections where you'd need the softer compound to get you up there and assist you to get up the steeper stuff or the more technical stuff. Or the Treff, if it was dry, really dry, and then like I said, if it was the Treff layer was a little bit wetter, then you'd go for a slightly smaller mousse inside, or maybe just a more used mousse to get a little bit more tyre spread on the floor, so you're hooking up in the straight lines. Yeah, lots of little do's and don'ts with tyres, but there's so many things out there, so many things to listen to. I can't waffle all the time about it, but you've got to try and experiment, learn from mistakes like I have over the years, and generally just think what works, what doesn't work, and just have fun playing around, testing. So another really famous race that you might choose this for would be the Erzberg Prologue, so the Iron Road Prologue at Erzberg. It's 10 minutes of wide open gravel road, but stones like this in places and bigger than that. Again, you'd run it with a stiffer mousse, so you wouldn't really be able to press it at all, and you want that corner stability. So this would be ripping out those stones from the Iron Road Prologue and propelling you up to the top as fast as you can go, which is the goal, to get in the first 50. So for this yellow stripe Terra Force, if it was a faster setup that I'm talking about and you're wanting it a little bit stiffer, then I'd be going for the 140 mousse. And the Mitas mousses are specifically made and designed for the Mitas tyres. So yeah, and then if it was a slightly wetter day but you're still wanting to go for a stiffer knobble to shift some dirt, then I'd probably go for a 120 mousse inside here. And yeah, so it's got that little bit bigger of a footprint on the floor, and then that means that there's more knobbles coming into play, which means you're going to go a little bit, you're going to get some more traction out of the corners that you might need to. But then it comes with a little bit of a sacrifice where it might not be as stable through some different kind of undulating terrain or whatever, but then you're going to gain time from the corners. So like always with off-road, things are a compromise, and you can't have everything all the time. You've just got to work out what's the best compromise for every situation. So with this tyre, there's only those two mousses that I personally would use. It would be the standard mousse, and in both 140 and 120. So whereas another tyre in a second that we'll be talking about might have a bigger variation of mousse choices inside it. I know everything up here for myself, but it's getting it across to you guys out there what's right and what's wrong. But it depends on where you're from. In the UK, things are working very differently to what's in Spain. So if you're just going out riding with your friends, then your setup's going to be completely different to some guy riding in England just going riding with his friends as well. So yeah, like I say, you've got to explore. There's plenty of range out there. So you've got all three different compounds of tyres in front and rear. So get out there, check them out, and see which you prefer. So now we've got Terra Force again, single green. Yeah, so 140, 80, 18, FIM approved as well, and probably the most versatile tyre in the Mitas range for enduro. You can do hard enduro with it, you can do normal enduro with it, fast, bit of everything. So really cool tyre, good all-rounder. Knobbles are quite a bit softer, getting more towards and not an extreme setup, but just like I said, just a good all-round compound in this tyre, because it's good for the fast stuff, it's good for the slower technical stuff, and pair this tyre up with the right mousse, you're gonna be really getting the best out of this tyre. So just a little point here. These little pieces here are to just shift some mud. Obviously, we don't get much mud in the UK. So that's a joke, by the way. Now we've got the good weather, we can't go anywhere. So again, directional, it's on the side. So for me, like I said just then, the mousses, you can pretty much use every mousse except the front mousses. Yeah, you can use in this tyre for me. Again, personal choice. Don't slate me, don't hold me to it. So I would even use this for Erzberg Prologue also, potentially. I would use it for the Treff maybe as well, depending on the ground conditions and the weather leading up to it. I'd use it for Hawkstone Park. Races that I wouldn't use it for, and maybe it would last a bit longer than the double green, but the double green can get you out of some trouble when you really need it and you've not got much energy. So the likes of the main race at Erzberg, the Red Bull Romaniacs, I wouldn't be using this tyre. I'd be going more for the double green. But jumping back onto this tyre, 140 standard mousse, 120 mousse. I'd be using all the extreme mousses in this as well. So with this tyre, like I said, the most all-round tyre, I'm pretty certain at some point in time I would use every mousse that Mitas make inside this one. So whether it be in the 140 range with all three compounds, being the standard, the soft and the flat, I'd be using that at different races or whatever. And then with the 120s, for sure I'd be using the standard and the soft as well. So just a little key point to add though, if you're going for a mousse that's slightly smaller or more of an extreme, then I certainly would be running two rim locks. Yeah, opposite. You've got to be opposite. Don't sneak in that one because you're lazy and you don't want to drill the other hole out opposite. Yeah, fill the spur hole with an old valve core. Yeah, an old valve from it. You can cut it out of an old inner tube or something like this, and you just stop all the water going in there, because that's one thing that mousses don't like is water. And we get a lot of it in the UK. So yeah, I can actually show you a wheel that I've got on my bike that's got two rim locks in, and it's got a soft mousse in, but it's not the single green, it's a double green. Here's the double green. Double green Mitas. You can see how playable it is here. So nice. This is the key to this tyre, the structure of it and how soft it is. But it always pops on the rim. The most amazing thing about Mitas tyres is no matter what size mousse you've got in, it always goes onto the rim, which a lot of other tyres don't sit on the rim very well. So you might see some of the factory boys with 3 rim locks in, and that's just to keep them tyres on the rim and to be a bit extra security. So this tyre's done. Before we got told we weren't allowed out, this tyre had done quite a lot in a quarry where I go quite a lot, and very abrasive. I've been out, I don't know, maybe four or 5 times on this tyre. So you can see it's feathering off nicely there. All the knobbles are still on. It's had a bit of abuse, bit of whiskey throttle here and there, and some good long skids, and it's holding up nicely. And this has got the soft mousse in. So for me, this mousse, if I was going, let's say, to Red Bull Romaniacs, yeah, I'd expect this tyre to look like this by the first service point probably. But here, in this mousse isn't quite soft enough yet for me. Yeah. So you see how it's not pressing quite far enough. So what I'm trying to do with this mousse at the moment is get it a little bit softer. Use it, but it's a gamble, because if you use it too long, then it might break or something like that. So you've got to pull it out just at the right time, put it to one side, label it up, bang it in, ready for the main race. Yeah? But don't tell any of my competitors that, will you? The mousse that I've put into this tyre is the soft, the 140 soft. So I'm just waiting for it to bed in a little bit more, and then I'll whip this out ready and put it on the shelf and be ready for one of the big races. So yeah, but like I said, the tyre's holding up really well. It's been in a pretty abrasive quarry, and I'm really happy with how it's held up so far. So here we have the daddy, the helper of hard enduro riders in the wildest conditions. This is the Terra 140/80/18 EH tyre, super soft, double green. This tyre can pull you up virtually anything. When it's super slippery in riverbeds or whatever, it's the tyre. It's the only tyre to have. Pair it with the right mousse, get a good footprint on the ground, getting a good nice surface area, and you'll be tracking up the toughest conditions thrown at you by these crazy extreme enduro, hard enduro organisers. So yeah, back at you, extreme enduro organisers. My favourite tyre, just because of the type of riding I mainly do. I really like to trust it, and I can really, you know, get a response from my right hand down to the back tyre. So when I want to give it a little bit more gas, I know exactly what it's going to be doing all the time. And if you can look after it throughout a race as well, they last so good. But you've just got to be careful with the super soft tyres when you're on gravel roads, etc. You can't be, you know, ragging it like a motocross tyre, and you've got to be using this tyre where you want it to give you some help. So save it where you can, but carry speed, and you'll have a good tyre still at the end of the day. So now we'll talk about some mousses that will fit into this tyre, and mousses that I wouldn't necessarily use because it's pointless in a way. So we'll start with the pointless ones. I wouldn't use the standard 140, because actually the whole idea of a double green is that you get a bit more of a footprint, like I've said. So with the 140, it'd just be too stiff, and you wouldn't get the advantage from this tyre. Standard 120 would be good, and it'd probably last a while as well, but make sure you use 2 rim locks. Now moving on to probably the mousse that's designed specifically for this tyre is the soft, the 140 soft. Fits really nice. The only thing is, you put it in at the beginning and it just wants to bed in a little bit at the beginning, but once it's bedded in, it's coming really nice and will last you a while also. So for me, what I do is I'll bed in the mousse, so that's using the mousse before a big race, and I'm literally trying to just, you know, not hit anything that's going to absolutely annihilate it. So the last thing I'd do is go on an enduro cross track and be wheeling at rock sections that are square edge all day long. When I talk about bedding, I mean just go riding, do normal stuff, and just try to break in that mousse. So when it's ready, when you're coming up to a big race, you get it out of the bag and you straight into the tyre knowing when it's done. So if you didn't have time to bed in a mousse, but you was going straight out to a big race and you needed something to work out of the box, then you'd probably go for the extreme version in the mousse, which is also known as the flat mousse. So that would give you a really big footprint and you'd be able to tractor your way up the most difficult terrain. So also that would work well with the single green as well. So the flat mousse, doing that kind of thing for certain races. Let's say if it was a bit more muddy, so but still an extreme race. But all in all, if you're doing extreme races and it's getting technical and snotty, then this is for me the best tyre in the range. So in the front Terra range, we've got both of the same pattern. We've got the yellow stripe and the green stripe. So basically this is a slightly stronger, stiffer carcass with slightly stiffer compound in the knobbles, and this is a slightly softer compound in the front. So let's just say, give it, you know, judging on what events I'd be doing in this season, this front here would be the yellow stripe. I'd be using it for Erzberg, mainly on the prologue, just to have that bit more confidence in the front. A lot of pressure going through the knobbles, so you don't want them bending and twisting. Whereas the green stripe I'd be using for the main race, just because some of the bits where you'd have a bit of a descent where it's quite slippy and muddy, you'd probably get a bit more bite in the ground with this one, and across the off cambers where there's slippy rocks, tree roots, etc. Both these tyres work really well in the right situations. So the yellow stripe for more harder terrain, and the green stripe for your more all-round hard terrain, soft terrain, slippery and greasy situations. So these Terra 9100, we've also got these in a 9090 as well. So, but same again, yellow stripe and single green stripe. So you can check them out as well. As your mousses get a little bit older and more tired, you can actually go from your 9100 tyre and you can bang it in a 9090 to get a little bit more life out of your front mousse. So little top tip, saving your pocket. So all the advice that I'm passing on to you guys now is just from my personal experience and what's been working, not working for me in the past. So there's lots of different variables in off-road, and basically they are what the terrain is, you know, is it wet or dry, is it steep or whatever, the rider ability, there's so many variables. So just get out there, have some fun, and give each tyre a try and see which you like the best, and tag in the comments and see what you find's best and working well. You never know, it might teach me something. So people ask me a lot on my training schools when to use a mousse, when to use a tube. Well, it's quite simple really. If you're not entering a big events or just small club events, whatever, you're paying an entry fee, etc. You know, you've got to go and you've got to go try and finish that race. So the only way of concreting that in and making sure that you're going to finish the race is to run mousses, because you're not going to get a puncture, are you? So, but if you're just out with your friends having fun, then there's no reason why you need mousses necessarily. But you can run lower pressures with the mousse, so you might have more traction, which could help in getting up a hill that your friend can't. But also, if you're just out with your friends at weekends, then tubes are going to be just fine, because you're just out there for the fun of it. And if you do get a puncture, you can either just ride back early or literally just fix it at the side of the track. So that's what I think about mousses versus tubes. There's a couple of little things that I do while I've got mousses in my bike, and that's number one is double rim lock on the rear if you're running a soft setup. If you're running a stiffer setup for more traditional enduro, then you don't need to do this at all, but I do recommend getting a good rim lock. You know, there's a lot of rubberized ones that aren't very good, especially when you get a bit of water in between the tyre and the mousse and things like that. Another one is keeping the bike on a stand so you don't get any flat spots, especially more on the extreme mousses. You can get that happening if you're not riding from one week to the next or every couple of weeks. And that's about it really, but keep them lubed and look after them, and they'll look after you. So I hope you've enjoyed my top tips and, you know, a general roundup of different tyres, different mousses for different situations. You know, get out there, have some fun, try some different combos, and let us know what you think. Cheers.